Ripple, Circle, BlackRock, and Vanguard to dominate the financial system? I'm going to break it down in heavy detail right after this.
I ain't gonna give in now, I ain't gonna live this now. I'm gonna be man, I'ma kill this stuff real quick. I'ma go take it to town, cause I gotta be that king in the ring. And I'm not getting mad when I'm back with the whip, cause I am just off on the journey. Just know that I'm just going insane.
Warriors, rise. Grand rising and good evening, warriors. Good evening. Good evening, warriors all over the world. From my family's heart to yours, I love you. I appreciate you. I hope this information reaches your family very well. My job as Coach JV is to make the complex very, very simple. I feel like I'm an expert in macro and microeconomics. I have an expert team around cryptocurrency, but what I'm really good at is a logical circuit, taking all these dots and connecting it to make an informed decision. I'm not left, I'm not right, I'm not up, I'm not down. My president and CEO is God, and I work on a feeling and vibration. I make my financial decisions not based on emotion, but based on facts, figures, numbers, logic. So what I'm about to present to you is a very deep interconnection with the financial system. I believe Ripple, Circle, BlackRock, and Vanguard are going to dominate the financial system. In tomorrow's video, I'm going to show you more facts, figures, numbers, logic. So I hope this information reaches you well. So let's take a look at this, okay? So if we dive into this, Eleanor Tourette, she's a beast, absolute beast on Twitter. Big shout out to her. She's delving deep into the Ripple case, and she's spreading a lot of information around or reporting a lot of news around Ripple, Gary Gensler, and this whole case going on with Ripple and the SEC. So in her tweet, she says the September edition of Gary Gensler's public calendar has been added to the SEC.gov website. Highlights include 4 calls with CFTC chairman, 2 calls with former SEC general counsel John Coates, plus meetings with Vanguard Group and USAMB China and BlackRock. So today we're going to focus on Vanguard and BlackRock. How does that sound? So SEC Gary Gensler will meet with Vanguard and they'll meet with BlackRock, but we have to ask ourselves why. Why would he sit with Vanguard and BlackRock and not sit with other companies? Well, we're going to find out today. Let's dive into it. Okay. So this is an interesting, by crypto law, it's really important that I think it was a response to this. Yeah. So this is added to the document library. This is a response to this. So it's important to note that Vanguard Group manages Gary Gensler's personal fortune of $100 million, and he has given them excessive access to his office since he became SEC chair. So here's his schedule. You can click right here. You can actually follow the schedule. If you go to Eleanor Tourette's Twitter, click right here. You can see here, crypto law, John Deaton's company. Vanguard has 100 million of his portfolio, of Gary Gensler's portfolio. Well, let's dive into this, okay? So BlackRock, one of the companies he's meeting with, these are all the companies that BlackRock owns. BlackRock is a dominant force in the financial system. So some of them include Amazon, Pfizer, CNN, Fox, Uber. The list goes on and on. Now, this is equity or stock in these companies or large position in these companies. And you can sit back. You got Walt Disney Company, you got PayPal, you got Walmart, Facebook, Netflix. You can go through this whole chart yourself, okay? Many things that have to do with information management as well. We got Verizon, Exxon, okay? So these are some of the companies that BlackRock owns. Vanguard, this shows you how powerful Vanguard and BlackRock's ownership by sector are, okay? So if you look at basic materials, BlackRock and Vanguard own about 13% combined. Communications, they own about 12.5% combined. Consumer and cyclical is 14% combined. Consumer non-cyclical, 13% combined. Energy, 13.6%. Financial, 15.9%. Industrial, 14.4%. Technology, 14.0%. And utility, 16.2%. Okay. Now I'm going to dive into some really cool documents here. Okay. So first of all, BlackRock, this is what they own. Gary Gensler is meeting with BlackRock and Vanguard. Vanguard holds 100 million of his portfolio. So as Ripple sits there with the SEC, and tomorrow I'm going to break down the top 4 companies I believe that are going to survive, crypto companies specifically, that are going to survive this recession based on my logical circuit and the deep connections. That's how I make my investments. I take my emotions out of it, guys. I take my emotions out of it completely. So somebody said on a Twitter post, I'm sorry, TikTok, one of my comments, they said, how are you going to invest? So think about it. They said, how are you going to invest in anything that BlackRock is doing, which I was talking about ECG, environmental social governance. I said, you're using the things that they're invested in now. Like, you're not going to run from this system. You could say, oh, I'm not investing in Bill Gates, and they're on here, Bill and Melinda Gates stuff. You're using products and services that they invest in right now. You're not running from the system. You're not tricking anybody. We are using and watching all the products and services that they own. They are just moving us into a Web3. They're moving us into technical. The system is moving. They already own most of the stuff. So when you say, well, I'm not going to invest in this stuff because it's evil or it's this or that, it's always been this way. It's nothing new under the sun. So this is from the World Economic Forum, and this is back in 2016, I think it was. So you can dive into, it's a PowerPoint, a deep PowerPoint, where they're breaking down the future industry leaders around cryptocurrency, okay, around blockchain technology, and the future. If we'll just take a dive down here really quickly. So let's look at this slide. This is slide number 20. This was 2016. So it shows you the evolution of, and it says distributed ledger technology is not a panacea. Instead, it should be viewed as one of many technologies that will form the foundation of the next generation of financial structure. Let me just read that line again for you. Distributed ledger technology is not a panacea. Instead, it should be viewed as one of many technologies that will form the foundation of the next generations of financial services. Okay, so it shows you right here, 1960s, 1970s. It's just a transition into Web 3.0 and in technical. Okay. Then in 2010 to future, biometrics, cloud computing, cognitive computing, distributed ledger technology, machine learning, predictive analytics, quantum computing, and robotics. One thing you want to think about is the two largest companies that were still sustained at the World Economic Forum was Circle and Ripple. Okay. Everything was collapsing in 2022. Davos, most crypto companies were there. In 2023, only a couple crypto companies were there, and they had the most crypto meetings. Circle and Ripple was present, and so was BlackRock. BlackRock CEO is on the board of trustees to move the World Economic Forum mission and values forward. Gary Gensler, oh, sorry, close that down on accident. Gary Gensler will be meeting with Vanguard, which holds 100 million of his portfolio. He'll be meeting with BlackRock, which is one of the largest asset managers in the world. Okay, so here's the PowerPoint. Let's go back up here. Okay, so this shows you here the analysts we based on over 12 months of research, engaging industry leaders and the subject matter experts through interviews and multi-shareholder workshops. Okay, so if we dive into this and we take a look at the companies that we're diving into, okay, you see some of the companies that look familiar here. BlackRock, you got Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, Visa, HSBC, Santander. Ripple works with Santander. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We could go on and on. So the conducted interviews with solicited input from subject matter experts. Ripple, Hyperledger. These are all familiar ones we've talked about. I told you to dive into Hyperledger, the fabric. You got Stellar, Consensus, which Ethereum's deep into consensus and is framing the new banking system. You got Digital Currency Group, which I think might have broke up. We got Coinbase. So pay attention, because tomorrow's presentation I'm going to do for you is going to connect which 4 companies I think are going to survive this recession and not only dominate. So the ones I want you to pay attention to as an investor is Circle, Ripple. Okay. We got Hyperledger, Consensus, BlackRock. You want to pay attention to them. Okay, those are some of the ones. Then we look at the engaged leaders from academia, government. We have the United States Federal Reserve System. We have the White House, obviously, the European Central Bank. We have Bank of England. We have the Reserve Bank of Australia. We know Ripple has some connection here. We have MIT Media Lab. We know Gary Gensler was the head of the MIT professor at cryptocurrency at MIT. So this is a nice little document you can look at, and it shows you distributed ledger technology is here to stay, and we're transitioning into the future with DLT. DLT is one of many informative technologies that will shape the future financial infrastructure and should be seen as part of the toolbox. Okay, so Gary Gensler is going to be meeting with Vanguard Group, BlackRock throughout the year. BlackRock owns pretty much everything. Vanguard and BlackRock together are a dominant force. We know we're going to distributed ledger technology. These are the companies they were leaning on in 2016 to get the proper guidance as they move into the future. These are the companies based on the capital markets. Okay, then we're going to move into the corporates by use case. Okay, so this is Block Data. I love Block Data's website. They have such great infrastructure in regards to their reporting, their news, and just so much detail. So let's look at the actual capital markets, right? We need to look at the infrastructure. And then tomorrow I'm going to present to you which companies I think are going to make it based on being sued by the SEC. Always do the opposite of what they're doing, okay? So the payments companies are Ripple, Circle, Tether, Santander, which I believe Ripple works with Santander as well. So those are some that really stand out to us, okay? So the ones that we know. We got Consensus down here, so you got infrastructure. R3 is with Wells Fargo. Consensus is connected to Ethereum, but through Consensus. Hyperledger Fabric Foundation, excuse me. I've shared with you guys a dive into the Hyperledger Fabric. So we know here's the infrastructure, right? Now here's the corporate structure. Capital markets, excuse me. You got Bank of America. Who else do we got in here? We got European Central Bank, Bank of England. Okay, if you look at the actual infrastructure, okay, this is the infrastructure down here. You got Tezos, you got Hyperledger Fabric. You're going to see Hyperledger Fabric pop up everywhere. That is like the web of everything. You got Bank of America that's connected to Ripple. We got HSBC, end-to-end platforms, NASDAQ. You got Goldman Sachs. You got all these large companies, Citigroup, right? Everything is interconnected. Vanguard, there's Vanguard popping up again. I just want us to understand that this is all being played out behind the scenes, lockstep. That's why I encourage people to take a look at link 2. If you click the description down below, you can get into Ripple pre-IPO if you're an accredited investor. So you can buy shares of Ripple right now. Circle, okay, they're public. I believe Circle is public right now. Ripple is going to go public as soon as the case settles. And then tomorrow, I'm going to show you some really cool resources already here. I'll give you a little hint where I'm going to show you all the companies that happen to be sued by the SEC end up being some of the most powerful companies in the world. Okay, so let's recap really quickly. So Eleanor Tourette sent that out. We know that Vanguard holds 100 million of Gary Gensler's portfolio. We know what BlackRock owns. We know what BlackRock and Vanguard own combined. This is the infrastructure that they used or the people they reached out to for advice on moving this into distributed ledger technology, okay, which is really important. And if we look at the capital markets, these are the payments. We got payments, we got Ripple, Circle, Gemini, Tether, Santander. The infrastructure is Consensus, okay, R3. We know all these are connected, Hyperledger, Foundation. And as we go into DLT, we look at capital markets. We got Bank of America, MasterCard, Bank of England. When you hear Bank of America, I want you to take a deep breath and think Bank of the world. Bank of America is a massive, massive, massive bank. And we know Ripple is inside of their patent, okay? So again, if you want to get into Ripple pre-IPO, if you click the description down below, you can check out link 2. It's not an investment, it's an app where you can get into unicorns pre-IPO. So I hope this information reaches you well. I really enjoy doing this. I really enjoy diving this, but this is how I make my investment decisions. I do it based on infrastructure, payment systems, and really understanding the intrinsic value. So tomorrow I'm going to present to you 4 companies, crypto companies. I'm not talking about the actual coin. You got Ripple, the company, XRP, the coin, and probably will, they'll be attached in some way, obviously, but you can do both separate. XRP is different than Ripple. But I'm going to present to you the companies that I think are going to survive the recession, not only survive, but thrive because they're being sued or attacked by the SEC. When they tell you to look this way, there's always another narrative going on this way. Warriors, rise, get your shit together. Let's go. Love you guys.